So we've all heard about the dreaded chip shortage going on in the United States right now, and more than likely around the world. How bad is it, and when can we expect it to get better? Um, well, let's read and find out. Um, Thanks for watching. Let's get into this, and we'll see. Chip shortage means some companies have less than 5 days worth of inventory. Chip buyers report less than 5 days worth of semiconductor supplies, down from a 40-day inventory in 2019, according to the U.S. Commerce Department. So a report came out from the U.S. Commerce Department, and we're going to this covers most of the important information in that report. Chip suppliers are so fragile that many companies and manufacturers only have a few days worth of supply, according to the U.S. Commerce Department. The findings come from a study the agency launched in September to examine the impact of the ongoing chip shortage. It found that on a median basis, semiconductor buyers are reporting less than a 5-day supply, down from the 40-day inventory back in 2019. The situation is even worse for, quote, key industries, where chip supplies are more scarce. This means a disruption overseas, which might shut down a semiconductor plant for 2 or 3 weeks, has the potential to disable a manufacturing facility and furlough workers in the United States, if that facility only has 3 to 5 days of inventory, the Commerce Department warns. The study released today includes responses from more than 150 companies. Respondents are not named, but include, this is the quote in the report, these companies are, quote, nearly every major semiconductor producer, and companies involved in a variety of industries, including car manufacturing, healthcare, and electronics. The Commerce Department found the chip demand among buyers was 17% higher in 2020 compared to 2019. However, companies have yet to see a commensurate increase in the supply they received. And of course, we've seen recently that PC sales have gone up, I believe 20% or so, 17, 18% this last year, which was not anticipated by anyone as far as I know. So usually PC sales are kind of a slow decline, at least they have been, with things like Chromebooks and phones. But people are still buying those, and I think people staying home on Zoom calls or just working from home remotely has caused people to upgrade their PC. Maybe they have an old one laying around, and now they actually have to work from it. So that's at least one area in which people are having to upgrade their computer. Most major chip factories have also been booked at over 90% capacity since second quarter of 2020, leaving little room to churn out more semiconductors. So this is the percent of their capacity, full utilization, they term. And you can see before, at the very beginning of 2019, they were less than 80% of what they were able to put out. And then you could see the problems actually started before the pandemic. And if you're in the kind of in the same space I am as far as what you're paying attention to, RAM chips for computers were already getting expensive for the last several years before this. And then in 2019, you can see it really ramps up over the 80%, which is what they want to be at for the long term. Long-term model of full utilization is less than 80%. So they're already jumping up to nearly 90 in the third quarter of 2019. And then by the first quarter of 2020, it kind of drops down to not much, honestly. It's really only about 86% there. And then, of course, it reaches its highest in the second quarter of last year at darn near 100%. And we've dropped down to near 90 again. So if this trend continues, it could be several years before we get down to 80%, which is what they say is optimal. Quote, the main bottleneck identified is the need for additional fabrication capacity. In addition, companies identified material and assembly, tests, and packaging capacity as bottlenecks. I would imagine material would be, this is what everything's made out of. If they can't get the individual components of these products, they can't put them together. Assembly, tests and packaging. I'm not sure packaging would be such a big deal. That's kind of surprising. But assembly, if your workers are out sick or a plant gets shut down, you don't have the ability to assemble the stuff. The other notable finding is that some companies report, quote, unusually high prices for semiconductors sold through brokers, which the Commerce Department is investigating. Survey respondents also expect the chip shortage to persist for at least 6 months. But in some good news, the Commerce Department notes several new chip factories are scheduled to go online during this year's second half, which could alleviate some of the demand. And we know from a previous story that Intel is planning on building a factory in the United States, I believe in Ohio, as is Samsung, who is building in Austin, which these won't be ready for several years, but if things kind of calm down in the next, I would hope by the end of the year, maybe by honestly, I believe the Samsung one is not scheduled to open until 24, but hopefully we'll be trending in the right direction before they open. To improve chip supplies over the long term, the Commerce Department says it's crucial for the U.S. to bolster its homegrown chip manufacturing industry and reduce its reliance on overseas suppliers. Specifically, the agency is calling on Congress to pass the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, which includes $52 billion to help subsidize domestic semiconductor manufacturing. Quote, every day we wait is a day we fall further behind, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo writes in a blog post. But if we pass this bill and address this problem, we can create good jobs, rebuild American manufacturing, and strengthen supply chains here at home for decades to come, blah, blah, blah. And there's a few more important things here I wanted to touch on. This is just a same story. It's on the same report, but this is from Engadget here. This is a quote from the report. We aren't even close to being out of the woods with supply problems, Department Secretary Gina Raimondo said. So it's not as though we're slowly coming out of it. We are, but it's going to be months and months, possibly even into next year. The shortage is particularly damaging broadband companies, car makers, and medical device producers, according to the report. Despite early claims, there wasn't evidence hoarding contributed to the shortfalls. Demand was higher, too, with median interest about 17% higher, this we know. The Commerce Department study was comprehensive, obtaining supply chain data, this we know. Officials concluded the government couldn't directly end the shortage. Of course, imagine thinking the government could fix every problem you have. It's like, we have a problem, let's call the government in to fix it, because they're well known for fixing problems. Private companies were best positioned to overcome challenges by increasing production, optimizing their designs, and limiting the impact of their supply chains. Yeah, if this causes manufacturers to become more efficient, or in your manufacturing, then all the better, because then when everything ramps up, we may get devices for cheaper. However, Raimondo used this as an opportunity to plug President Biden's proposed subsidy U.S. Innovation and Competition Act. Factories resulting in the U.S. ICA money wouldn't be ready for years. However, the bill itself has been delayed. While it passed a crucial Senate vote, the House bill is only expected to surface by this week at the earliest. It could take longer for both to clear the House and evolve into a final bill Biden can sign into law. For now, the tech industry largely has to solve the dilemma on its own. Well, so there you go. We're not quite out of the woods yet, but hope is on the horizon. So if you can wait to buy a new computer, if you can wait a year, it might be prudent to do so. If you can't, if you need one, I would say just get it. You can't ever predict this stuff. You never know what might happen, so you can't count on the predictions here. So you kind of have to we just kind of have to deal with it for now. There's your update. Appreciate you watching this far. You'll have a good day, and we'll catch up with you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.